I'm going crazy, sitting on that train, and I don't think I'm ever coming home. Don't think I'm lazy, don't think I'm strange. I do think I'm really just losing it all. 'Cause I'm going crazy. Yes, I'm going crazy.
Dean, hi, Dean. Can you hear? I can't hear you.
I had it on mute. Sorry.
Oh, good. How are you?
Great.
Good. Yeah. I gotta cleanse my palate. Maybe that's it. I just 1 second.
That was a lot of fun. You should have just kept that going.
I should have. Pinky's great. Again, I follow her on Twitter. She loves celebrities, always taking the selfies with them. And Keith is such a, I really think, and you say this because you have people on, but I really think he is one of those names, one of those faces, one of those powerful, iconic characters from us growing up from the 80s and early 90s.
No, the minute I saw his face, I was like, oh.
Yeah. And then he's spending a lot of time on the con circuit as well.
Which is where I mainly see my old celebrities.
I love going to those things just for that reason. I love running into people, and I'm more of of course, I'd love to meet someone like Bradley Cooper or Gal Gadot, but I find it more enjoyable to talk to those people who have the stories. They've got the time in between where at this point they just don't give a shit. You can get more out of them.
Well, I bought one of my T-shirts from Gil Gerard.
Oh, really?
Who was at one of the smaller conventions with us. And I didn't want his autograph. I just wanted to go over and buy a T-shirt from him and say hello. And it was great. And he was such a nice guy. And he's been at several of the shows, and he even was like, "Are you going to the Rhode Island show? Make sure you wear your T-shirt." So it was great.
Yeah, I have a hard time waiting in line for like an hour and a half just for that crabby signature fake smile with the picture. I would much rather. I did this with Corbin Burnson from LA Law and Major League. He was all alone at his table, so we went over and had a great conversation with him. I ended up buying a $50 baseball with his name on it, but I would much rather have that conversation.
Yeah, the only line I ever stood in for an autograph was Bruce Campbell, and that was it was the last Rock and Shock.
Yep.
And the line the first day he was there, stretched all the way. Our table was on the opposite side of the convention, and the line was all the way around by us. And I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to see Bruce Campbell because I can't leave my table for, this long. And then Sunday, there wasn't as many people. And I was like, I'm going to sneak over and go, have a Army of Darkness poster signed. And it actually moved really quickly on that Sunday and was able to. I got so nervous that I was like, did you know that when I was in college, you came to my college and I didn't get to see you? And I was very upset that I didn't get to see you. And all these years I've wanted to meet you and have that because I didn't get to see you in college. And it was just okay, yeah,
yeah, man. You had all that time to think about what you were going to say, practice it, and then that's how it comes out.
Yeah, I met Bernie Wrightson at another show, back before we were doing conventions, and we went to go see my two favorite artists are Bernie Wrightson and Bill Sienkiewicz. And we went over to Bernie Wrightson, and he started talking to my girlfriend about subway turnstiles. And I'm sitting there and the two of them are just chatting away about how tokens aren't used and what it's like in Boston. And I'm still sitting there just kind of you can't talk to Bernie Wrightson about turnstiles.
It's not what he's famous for. Stop it. You're embarrassing me.
He made Swamp Thing.
Well, Dean, I see you every Sunday. We do Chicken Chat. Rubber Chicken Comics presents Chicken Chat. There's 5 of us, and Jay and Josh and Paul, and we take a topic and we do our top 3. We've been doing that for maybe about a year now? been a
Yeah,
while.
yeah, it wasn't long. It was when the stores shut down. So yeah, I guess it's been almost. We should look that up and have an anniversary special.
Right. But at this point, I feel like you're a close friend of mine.
Yeah,
But I
we
don't
do.
think
No, we've never actually met in person.
no, which is very weird. So my first question is, how tall are you?
I'm 6'1".
6'1". Okay, I figured you were on the tall side. Well, everybody's on the tall side for my 5'7" frame. Um, but yeah, those are questions. How do you pronounce your last name?
Yep, you just dropped out on that.
Oh, I did. How do you pronounce your last name? No,
Oh no.
no. Oh, am I
No,
still
you're
here?
back. Yeah,
Oh,
no,
good.
you're back.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Calusdian.
Calusdian. It sounds like a Star Wars character.
You know, I always like was thrilled when I was a kid because I always assumed that Lando Calrissian was a nice Armenian boy.
Or a distant relative.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, I want to go through some of the things that, well, I would say you're famous for, and you do a lot. And part of the reason why I wanted to have you on the show is I really do enjoy talking to interesting people, and you seem to live a very interesting life with your art, your acting, and I only know bits and pieces from what we talk about on Sunday nights. I want you to talk about your acting career a little bit.
Right.
So there's the first one. First of all, what's this all about?
All right, so that one, wow, you dug deep on the Facebook. Okay, so that one was I've only played that character once. That was from a show called Bada Bingo, and that was actually in Bellingham.
Oh, was it?
It was Tony Corey throws a
Oh my God.
fundraiser.
Yeah, for the
Bellingham.
Oliva Fund.
And it was so they do that year they did a murder mystery day, and the company that I do Clue for, they needed someone to play this part, and so I had like 4 days to memorize this whole script, and then go in and do this like cheesy mobster character that kind of, hey Lenny, what are you doing, kind of.
Hey, you're a wise guy, huh?
Yeah. It was totally that like high pitched voice, the Joe Pesci character in this, dinner theater, mystery theater thing fundraiser. So that's what that one was from.
That's very interesting because my radio station works with the Oliva Fund for Cancer Care, which Tony has been a part of with us for a long time. He started this, I think he calls it Saturday Night Live, and I remember him saying he's got like a mob show, and he raises a ton of money for that fund. So
well, what's funny is when I first started going to Rubber Chicken in Bellingham, my dad would always say to me, I used to work with a guy at Raytheon named Tony Corey who owned property in Bellingham. If you ever see him, and I was like, well, Dad, I go to the comic book store. Like I don't. And then one day I passed by Tony's Plaza and was like,
right there.
Oh, okay. And then when I actually met him doing this, I was like, well, you know my dad.
All right, let's talk about some of your art. Now,
Okay.
Some people watching right now are probably pretty familiar with the band Bad Marriage. A lot of, they're all friends of ours in the band, and you've done most of their artwork. You're doing some new stuff. This is some of the older stuff.
Yeah, no, they've been fantastic to work with. I love the Bad Marriage guys. We've put out, so that's all the stuff, or most of the stuff from the old album. There's also the vinyl that I pretty much spent the first half of the pandemic designing the interfold of their vinyl, which was a really one of the biggest pieces I've done, at least digitally. I did work for their stuff. I work with, the typical comic book way of doing ink and then coloring it on the computer. And that one, an album is actually a pretty big piece of art, like when you're doing it as a digital piece. So it took up a lot of memory on the computer, and it was actually about 5 different illustrations kind of merged into one in the end. So that one, it kept me busy after pretty much everything else that I do kind of shut down for the pandemic, because the whole theater and live entertainment side of things. I as you notice, I do a lot of diverse stuff, and it's always been good for me because, when I stop one thing, then I have something else to jump onto. But the pandemic pretty much was like, well, everything's gone now. Kind of. So I did have plenty of the illustration time to get
Well,
that
that's good.
banner stuff done.
And I really, album art is a lost art. You don't see a lot of, well, there is a resurgence of albums, but there was a gap for a long time where you didn't see anything like this anymore. It was just a CD, and you only have so much room on that CD cover. But I know people that collect albums just for the art.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm starting with the Interfold, they've already talked about the new album, so I'll be open about it. So I'm working on I did the cover. I've got a back cover, or the pages. I've got some more illustrations to go in there, and we've got a 2-page fold out in the middle, and I'm focusing on this tiny little space to do a big picture, and then kind of excited for the vinyl release to get the big version of it.
Yeah. Comic books, you're well versed in that, obviously, being friends with Jay and hanging out at Rubber Chicken Comics, but you have some of your own. Let's start with The Stalking Dead.
Yes.
Tell me about this one.
All right, so The Stalking Dead is like The Walking Dead, only funnier and more Christmassy. Or as we like to call it, the Citizen Kane of Christmas zombie comics.
Very nice. Yeah,
go ahead.
No, please. My thing was dumb. You keep talking.
So I pretty much tried to work every Christmas special, like everything you would recognize, but not like
every trope.
Yeah, every trope from the Christmas specials, and every trope from horror and zombie stuff, And I'm a big horror fan, as from doing our show, you probably know. Yeah. And so I tried to work in as many like little references that if you're a real fan of stuff, you might get like a little visual cue. Like one of my favorite things that I stuck in there was he's looking at a map, and the map is actually the map from the 60s TV show The Prisoner.
Oh, wow.
So there's like little things that I really just put in for like
Easter eggs.
All the other kids who are just as nerdy as I am.
Absolutely. I love that. And then you could read it a second time and pick something out that you missed the first time.
Yeah, I do think that this has a lot of it's a dense book as far as jokes go. There's a lot, it's filled with a lot of really bad puns, and a lot of it goes by pretty quickly, and there's a lot of gags.
And was this comic book all you?
Yeah. I started with another friend of mine who was originally going to do the inking, and he was working on his own series of books that were much more successful than anything I've ever done. And he ended up not having the time because he was making money doing the ones that he was doing.
There you go.
And his stuff, but he was with me all along, like really kind of guiding me. And so I actually had to kind of redo the first few pages because he had already done them, and I ended up having to match my style to his and then kind of blend the two of our stuff together.
And you can pick that up at Rubber Chicken Comics?
Yep, you can pick it up at Rubber Chicken Comics, or if for some horrible reason you can't make it to Rubber Chicken Comics, you can get it on Amazon, but it's better to go get it at Rubber Chicken because it helps out our friends.
This is a part 2, I believe, so I assume there was a part 1. Okay. Tell me about this one.
These aren't comics, so this is another thing that I do, and this is that is my
breakfast cereal.
What's that?
Yeah, breakfast cereal? No.
It's my collections of plays. So that's I have 4, 2 of which are available on Amazon. The other 2 I haven't quite done a broad release yet. So there's Story Emporium, Funky Fables, Fairy Tale A Go-Go, Story Emporium 2, and one other. No, is that 4? Yeah, so 4 collections of children's plays that they get done by other people. That I use them because I kind of originally wrote plays for myself to use because I was never finding something that was just the right length and incorporated the right amount of kids, gave kids a fair amount of parts, had jokes that the adults would get but wouldn't talk down to the kids, or that, because a lot of the plays that I look at for kids are either too saccharine or to adults. It's
Right.
kind of like, well, the jokes are funny for the adults, but the kids aren't getting them. And
Right.
and sometimes they're just just purely for the kids, and the adults will be like pulling out their teeth by the end of it. So I wanted to get something that really, again, if you know most of my comedy stuff, I've been described as not telling jokes, but just stringing together terrible puns and, trying to think of.
Hey.
But going back to Stalking Dead for a second, I did say it was a terrible collection of bad puns. But the one thing that I really like about what we did with Stalking Dead, or I did, I guess, is that it took I wanted to do something like Shaun of the Dead that had as much heart as it was funny, and like it had a good, solid, emotional story too. That so it's not always funny, and so I didn't want to talk down my own book too bad.
All right. And I don't know. Are those children's books? You have a few here.
This is one that's not out yet. This one I'm actually pitching right now. That's the great thing about being with me on Facebook. You actually get the stuff that you can't get. This is one I've been working on for a few years. A friend of mine who's a successful children's book writer kind of talked me into doing it myself. And so I wrote this book called Monsters Don't Like Mayonnaise. And it's all about the things that monsters will eat and the one condiment that they won't.
Did you find that out the hard way? Did you find that out the hard way?
I know, but it's, what's great is whenever I talk about it and, post anything about it, you realize how divisive a condiment mayo is. Like there is nobody that has like, they're like, oh yeah, well, I kind of like mayonnaise. It's like mayonnaise, or like people who don't like mayonnaise really don't like mayonnaise.
I went from hating it to loving it. I think it was a mature thing, a maturity level thing. I hit a certain age, I'm like, I'm mature enough to enjoy this now. But it was one or the other.
I have to say I'm in that boat too. It took me a long time to try mayonnaise on a sandwich. And I still am kind of like preferred if someone else puts the mayonnaise on my sandwich. I don't necessarily like seeing it in the bottle before I put it on the sandwich.
Sure. As long as you get it from a deli, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you have to make it, no, you're going with mustard.
Well, the thing is, if it has any of that slight yellowing on the top, then I'm done.
It's also not a child's condiment, I don't think.
No.
It doesn't play well with the kids. Monsters are very childlike, so maybe there's some truth there.
Yeah, so I have a feeling that kids will relate to the monsters, and that way, like I can bridge the gap of being like, well, I'm not telling kids they shouldn't eat mayonnaise because it's really monsters that don't eat mayonnaise. But if you don't like mayonnaise, someone agrees with you.
And here's another monster.
Okay, so this was a different project that I did with Jeff Kinney and the Unlikely Story bookstore.
That's funny. My son was just watching the movies, the Wimpy Kids. He was just watching it before I came down here. He loves those movies.
Oh, really?
Sorry,
I have to admit, I've never, in the time that I've done work there, I never have actually read one of the books.
Oh, really? He loves the books and he loves the movies.
And Jeff is an absolutely wonderful guy. And so when they first opened the store, and for 4 years after that, I designed originally Jeff wanted to do some kind of like haunted house type thing, and they couldn't figure out what to do. And I used to do another thing that you might not know about, is I used to design a haunted house at the castle, in the Hammond Castle in Gloucester, for about 10 years.
Wow.
My partner and I did a castle, a big haunted, really wholeheartedly scary haunted house at the Gloucester Castle, at Hammond Castle in Gloucester. And so I got this call from the Unlikely Story bookstore and Jeff's assistant saying, we heard that you do this haunted house stuff through our friends. Do you have any interest in doing something like that here? And I kind of was originally like, ooh, that's not really the right crowd for the haunted house. But I said, I always wanted to do a haunted house that was like, what if the Muppets put on a haunted house? And so originally the first idea that I pitched to them was kind of a goosebumpsy type of middle school scary type thing. And Jeff thought it might be a little too scary. And I turned around and said, like, okay, this is what I really want to do. Like, now that I'm done with what you do. So we did Halloween with the Bog Hoblins was the fourth one we did. We started with one. He wanted to try something different every time. The first one was Phineas T. McDarkley's Museum of Monsters. And that one, we set them all up like the second floor, set them all up like a haunted house, but you'd walk through and see, instead of a scary thing, you'd see a pun-filled satire of horror movies that, were like aimed, like, again, another mayonnaise one. We did the Blob, but instead of the Blob, it was a cafe with mayonnaise. We did a school lunch one, like a lot of like things that kids would relate to, but really satire in classic kids movies, classic horror movies. Sorry.
Right. Well, Dean, like I said, I love talking to interesting people, and you, first of all, blew my expectations because, man, I gotta respect anybody who hones a craft and then uses that to make themselves happy for the rest of their life. And I feel like you've done that. You may have been out of work because of the acting thing, but you went and you did the bad marriage thing as you had the time off. You keep creating. I mean, this stuff is amazing, man. And again, you can get The Stalking Dead at Rubber Chicken Comics. Here's just other.
That's our line of T-shirts. You can get those.
This is line. Okay. That's really cool. Where can you get that?
I think I'm pretty sure the website's up right now. It's that's dreamswithindreams.com, like the Edgar Allan Poe.
All right. Was this just a sketching? Just something you do for fun?
That's our copyright-free Nightmare Man, and that you can get at conventions. I'm not sure. There may possibly be a couple of those up on our website that we kind of put up for friends for a little bit in T-shirt form. There might still be that link up.
All right, where is the website? Because I found all this stuff on Instagram and Facebook, but I cannot find a Dean website.
Okay, so
with everything.
Actually, so there's actually not one for everything, because since I do such a wide variety of stuff, I had to split it off. So dreamswithindreams.com, you can get the darker, spookier stuff.
Okay.
And then if you want to see some of the other stuff that I do, you can go to artofdean.com, which is nice and simple.
Okay. All right. What was the first one again?
Is dreamswithindreams.com.
Dreamswithindreams.com. Okay. Good. I want to post that and I want to see it. Dreams Within Dreams. I could have asked this before and not spent so much time. And I'm not writing quick enough. All right. Dreamswithindreams.com, artofdean.com. You can purchase stuff. You can go see Dean at a convention once we can do that again. You can watch Rubber Chicken Comics presents Chicken Chat on Sunday nights and enjoy our top 3. Do you know what this week is?
This week is the one that we came up with the locations.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Fictitious locations on television, I believe, was what we...
Television, yeah. So that's always a lot of fun, too. Well, Dean, I got to know you a little bit more tonight, and I'm very happy. I know you're 6'1". That helps because we haven't met in person yet. So, and your name sounds like a Star Wars character. So you got a lot going for you.
Thank you.
height and coolness. Dean, I'll talk to you on Sunday night.
All right, thanks for having me.
See you, buddy.